afternoon, folks. I promised you a war, and now it's here. So we're going to start off our unit on the American Revolution with the classic battle, the first battle of Lexington and Concord. Our objective, I will be able to judge the reliability of two perspectives at Lexington and Concord using primary sources. So, it all starts with the First Continental Congress. In September 1774, delegates, or representatives from 12 to 13 colonies, met to discuss the Intolerable Acts. Little factoid, Georgia was not present at that meeting, that's why there were only 12 out of the 13, and if you remember the Intolerable Acts, it was the punishments that Great Britain put on Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. So if you can look at this picture yonder, we see front and center Mr. George Washington. Last we saw him, he was a colonel during the French and Indian War. He's progressively became more of a patriot. He's been organizing all of these protests, and you're finally going to see him rise to the president that we all know. So this is the start, or rather, the middle for Mr. George Washington. So this is what they did at the First Continental Congress. First thing they did was they wrote a letter urging King George to repeal the Intolerable Acts. It was a very, very polite and kind letter. They kind of just listed out their grievances and just asked Britain to just respect their rights as citizens. So that's one of the things they did. They also called for a boycott or protest of British goods. We've talked about boycotts before when we talked about the Boston Tea Party. Let's say Nike uses very questionable methods in making their clothes, and you don't like that. And you just are going to refuse to wear Nike ever again. Well, that's a boycott. You're boycotting that particular good for a political reason. And then finally, they had the colonies organize militias, or small armies called the Minutemen. So they were called the Minutemen because they could be called to action in about 60 seconds, and they didn't really expect a war to be all that long. So this is the video at Lexington and Concord. I'm just going to ask you to transition to the YouTube video link inside of our Schoology page. On top of that, we have today's activity is Lexington and Concord, who fired first. So make sure you're reading over your objective and your success checklist. This is going to be submitted to Schoology tomorrow. I'm giving you 2 days to work on this. These are pretty lengthy documents. So I would just do this perspective today, this perspective tomorrow with the exit ticket. So you're going to be looking at two perspectives, one from a British officer at the Battle of Lexington and Concord and a colonial militia officer. You're going to analyze the source for how reliable they are. When you do that, eventually we're going to come up to a decision where we're going to judge. And I want you to judge, who do you think fired first at Lexington and Concord? Was it the colonial militia or was it the British? And you're going to write it in the form of a racist